Life can feel lonely in those quiet moments when the world seems to be moving on without us. The weight of solitude can be overwhelming. When we face struggles, it often seems like no one understands. We may feel abandoned, as if our pain is invisible to those around us. The silence can be deafening, but in these moments we must remember God is always with us. His presence is a beacon of hope, a light in the darkness that guides us through our toughest times. Deuteronomy 31 verse 6 says, "Be strong and courageous." These words are not just a command, but a promise of divine support. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. This assurance is a reminder that we are never truly alone in our battles. He will never leave you nor forsake you. This eternal promise is a source of immense strength and comfort. This verse is a powerful reminder. It tells us that no matter how isolated we feel, we are always in the company of the divine. Even when we feel most alone, God is by our side. His presence is a constant, unwavering support that we can rely on. We are never truly alone. In our moments of despair, we can find solace in the knowledge that God walks with us. God walks with us through every trial. His guidance and love are ever present, helping us navigate the challenges we face. He sees our pain and hears our cries. Every tear, every plea is known to him, and he responds with compassion and grace. Trusting in his presence gives us the strength to face our challenges. With faith, we can overcome any obstacle, knowing that we are supported by a higher power. In our darkest moments, we must cling to the truth that God is with us. This truth is a lifeline, a source of hope that sustains us. His presence is a constant source of comfort and strength. It is a reminder that we are never abandoned, never forgotten. When we remember this, we can face any struggle with courage. With God by our side, we are empowered to rise above our challenges and find peace. Trials are a part of life. They test our faith and resilience. Every challenge we face is a stepping stone towards our growth. But these tests are not meant to break us. Instead, they are designed to build us up, to mold us into stronger individuals. They are meant to strengthen us, to push us beyond our limits and help us discover our true potential. James 1 verses 2-4 says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." This means that every trial we endure is a step towards our completeness. This passage tells us that trials are opportunities for growth. They are not just obstacles, but lessons in disguise. When we face difficulties, we can choose to see them as chances to grow. Each storm we weather makes us more resilient. Each challenge we overcome makes us stronger. Every small victory is a testament to our growing strength and determination. Our faith is like a muscle. It needs to be exercised and tested to grow. It grows stronger when it is tested. The more we push, the more we realize our capabilities. God uses our trials to build our character. Each adversity we face is a tool he uses to shape us. He knows what we need to become the people he wants us to be. His guidance through our trials is a testament to his love and purpose for us. Trusting in his purpose helps us endure our struggles with a hopeful heart. Knowing that every trial has a purpose gives us the strength to keep moving forward. Our pain is real, but it is not the end of the story. God has a greater plan for us. He sees the bigger picture. Jeremiah 29 verse 11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." This verse reassures us that God's plans are for our good. Even when we cannot see it, God is working in our lives. He uses our pain to bring about his purposes. Our current suffering is temporary. God's plan for us is eternal. Trusting in God's plan gives us hope. It reminds us that our struggles have a purpose. We can endure our present pain because we know God is leading us to a brighter future. Faith is the foundation of hope. Without faith, we can easily fall into despair, but with faith, we can face anything. Hebrews 10 verse 23 says, "Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for he who promised is faithful." This verse encourages us to hold on to our faith. God's promises are sure. He is faithful to fulfill them. When we give up on God, we give up on hope. But when we hold on to our faith, we are holding on to hope. Our faith sustains us. It gives us the strength to keep going. Faith is our anchor in the storm. It keeps us grounded when everything around us is chaotic. By maintaining our faith, we stay connected to the source of our hope. Section 5, the story of Job. The story of Job is a powerful example of faith in the midst of suffering. Job faced unimaginable trials, yet he never abandoned his faith in God. Job lost everything: his wealth, his health, and his family. Despite his suffering, he remained faithful. He said, "Though he slay me, yet will I hope in him." Job 13:15. Job's faith was unshakable. God honored Job's faith. In the end, he restored Job's fortunes and blessed him even more than before. Job's story teaches us that faithfulness in suffering leads to greater blessings. Like Job, we may face great trials, but if we maintain our faith, God will reward us. Our suffering is not in vain. God uses it to bring about greater good in our lives. Section 6, the disciples' trials. The disciples of Jesus also faced many trials. They were persecuted, they were imprisoned, yet they remained faithful. In Acts 5:41 we read, "The apostles left the Sanhedrin rejoicing because they had been counted worthy of suffering disgrace for the name." The disciples saw their suffering as a privilege. Their faith was strengthened through their trials. God used the disciples' faithfulness to spread the gospel. Their trials became testimonies. Their suffering had a purpose. It advanced God's kingdom. Our trials can also have a higher purpose. When we remain faithful, God uses our struggles to accomplish His will. Our suffering can become a powerful testimony of His grace. Section 7. Joseph's journey. Joseph's journey is another example of faith in adversity. His life was filled with challenges and hardships that tested his faith and resilience. He was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and imprisoned. These were not just minor setbacks, but life-altering events that could have broken anyone's spirit. Yet he never lost faith in God. Even in the darkest moments, Joseph held on to his belief that God was with him, guiding him through every trial. Joseph believed that God had a plan for him. He trusted that every hardship he faced was part of a greater purpose, a divine plan that he couldn't yet see. He said to his brothers, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Genesis 50:20. This statement reflects his deep understanding of God's sovereignty and goodness. Joseph saw God's hand in his trials. He recognized that his suffering was not in vain, but was being used by God to bring about a greater good. God used Joseph's faithfulness to save many people. His unwavering trust in God allowed him to rise above his circumstances and become a source of hope and help for others. He rose to a position of power in Egypt, becoming second only to Pharaoh. This was a remarkable turnaround for someone who had been a slave and a prisoner, and was able to provide for his family during a famine. His foresight and wisdom, gifts from God, enabled him to save countless lives during a time of great need. Joseph's story shows us that God can bring good out of our suffering. It teaches us that no matter how dire our circumstances may seem, there is always hope when we trust in God's plan. When we trust in God's plan, He can use our trials for a greater purpose. Our struggles and pain are not meaningless. They are part of a larger tapestry that God is weaving. Our suffering is not wasted. Every tear, every hardship, every moment of pain can be transformed by God into something meaningful and beautiful. God can turn it into something beautiful, just as He did with Joseph. He can take our brokenness and create something extraordinary, something that reflects His love and power. Section 8. Peter walking on water. Peter's experience walking on water teaches us about faith and doubt. When Peter kept his eyes on Jesus, he walked on water. But when he looked at the storm, he began to sink. Matthew 14:30-31 says, "But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, 'Lord, save me.' Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. 'You of little faith,' he said, 'why did you doubt?' Peter's faith wavered, but Jesus saved him." This story reminds us to keep our eyes on Jesus. When we focus on our problems, we begin to sink. But when we focus on Jesus, we can overcome any obstacle. Our faith may falter at times, but Jesus is always there to lift us up. By keeping our eyes on Him, we can walk through any storm. Section 9. Trust in God's plan. Trusting in God's plan is essential. We may not understand why we face certain trials, but we can trust that God has a purpose for everything. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight." This verse encourages us to trust God completely. God's ways are higher than our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. We may not always see his plan, but we can trust that it is good. Trusting in God's plan gives us peace. It helps us endure our trials with hope. We can rest in the assurance that God is in control. Section 10, Conclusion, Maintaining Faith. In conclusion, maintaining faith during tough times is crucial. God never abandons us. He is always with us, even in our darkest moments. Our trials are tests of faith meant to strengthen us. God's plans for us are greater than our present pain. Faith in God is the foundation of hope. Biblical stories like Job, the disciples, Joseph, and Peter walking on water illustrate these points. They show us the power of faith in adversity. No matter the circumstances, we must maintain our faith and trust in God's plan. He is faithful. He will see us through. Hold on to hope and never give up on God.